Good morning. I'm Rachna Singh, BC's Parliamentary Secretary for Anti-Racism Initiatives and MLA for Surrey Green Timbers. I'm grateful to be here today on the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. It's a pleasure to be joined today by Kamika Williams of the Nandutu Society and Ismail Truer, UBC Director of Faculty and Equity. I know that other members of the Black community are joining us online for this historic occasion. For the first time in its history, the BC government is proclaiming August 1st as Emancipation Day. It was on this date in 1834 that slavery was abolished across Canada. The Black community has been part of British Columbia since April 1858, when more than 800 members of the community arrived here, fleeing brutality and exploitation. Although the community has been here for more than 150 years, the experience of Black British Columbians continues to be marginalized, their histories and contributions to this province little known or celebrated. But this is a province that has been shaped by the contributions of Black Canadians throughout our history, from political figures such as Sir James Douglas, Emery Barnes, or Rosemary Brown, to cultural icons such as Eleanor Collins and Harry Jerome. These individuals have left their mark on British Columbia. But we can't always look to the past. We have to look to the contributions made today by the Black British Columbians. From the entrepreneurs, business owners, and creative professionals to those working in healthcare and education, we must uplift and share their stories. Recognizing Emancipation Day further supports this work. To the Black British Columbians here in the room and those with us virtually, I want to thank you for your long-lasting contributions and for continuing to push for social justice and equity for all of us. We as the government must do more to raise awareness of the past and present successes of BC's growing Black population, and also recognize the historical wrongs that the community has experienced, such as racist policies that prevented them from buying property or voting. While Emancipation Day commemorates the abolishment of slavery, we cannot lose sight of the barriers that the Black community still face. Our race or color of the skin should never limit our potential. But it's clear from the racism experienced by retired Judge Selwyn Romilly when he was mistakenly arrested while out walking in Stanley Park, to the overrepresentation of Black people in our courts and prisons, that too many Black British Columbians are struggling to get ahead because of the systemic racism that continues to bind them. We still have a long way to go until the Black community is treated equitably and with the respect that they deserve. Proclaiming this day is a sign of our commitment to do better to remove these barriers and dismantle racism for the Black community and for all other racialized and Indigenous communities who face it. Alongside this proclamation, we are also working in partnership with the community to better understand how we can recognize the International Decade for People of African Descent appropriately. Over the last few months, myself and other members of the government have been meeting with select members of the community on themes such as health and mental health supports, racism in education, and racism in the justice sector. We will be continuing these roundtables over the coming months and also more broadly engaging with the community to make sure as we hear as many voices as possible. We will share more information on what we have heard to date soon, and I look forward to further discussions in the coming weeks. But we know that the proclamations alone are not enough, and we need to back up our words with action. As government, we have moral and ethical responsibility to dismantle systemic racism and remove the barriers faced by racialized and Indigenous communities. We are currently working in partnership with the communities across the province to draft anti-racism data legislation, which will help us to provide better and more equitable service. And we are also committed to introducing BC's first Anti-Racism Act. These two pieces of legislation will help to make this a safer, more welcoming, and more equitable province for everyone, regardless of their race, skin color, or faith. The pandemic has shown that we cannot return to business as usual. We know that racialized and indigenous communities are tired of being scapegoated and attacked for the color of their skin. And they are tired of the examples of racism, both overt and subtle microaggressions that they face every day. As British Columbians, it is time for us to step up. We must do more to challenge that status quo and to speak out when we hear and see examples of racism. We need to reflect on our own biases and commit to doing the work needed to be anti-racist. But more importantly, our institutions have to fundamentally shift. Racism and hate are systemic, and they are hurting people in our communities. But by working together, we can build a better future for ourselves and our children. I would also like to thank Kamika Williams for requesting the province to proclaim Emancipation Day, and to other speakers with me this morning. I'm also grateful to the many Black Canadians who continue to push for social justice and equity for all. Thank you for inspiring us with your leadership. I look forward to continuing our discussions around racism and IDPAD, as well as what we can do more broadly to better support Black communities here in BC. If you want to share experience, I encourage you to visit the Isamba Center's website and complete their Black in BC survey. And look out for further opportunities to make your voice heard in the coming weeks as we launch our public consultation on anti-racism legislation. Now, before I pass over to Kamika, it's time to officially proclaim, and on behalf of the Premier John Horgan, for the first time in BC history, I officially proclaim August 1st, 2021 as Emancipation Day. Thank you and welcome, Kamika.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this. Thank you. Our society is very humbled and honored to receive this proclamation. This is a very significant moment for Black history and for civil rights in British Columbia. It's important to teach the truth so we understand our history and that we acknowledge the systemic racism of our past and our present, and how trauma and socioeconomic issues and struggles are so easily passed down through generations. This is a very important first step towards reconciliation and relationship building with the Black community in BC. I'm very thankful to Parliamentary Secretary Rachna Singh and to the Multiculturalism Branch for supporting this initiative. I'm also thankful for their ongoing commitment and support to combating anti-Black racism through these upcoming IDPAD initiatives. On behalf of Nina and Dotu Society, we thank you very much for your support. Now I would like to introduce Ismail Traore. He is the UBC Director of Faculty Equity and member of the Multicultural Advisory Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kamika. The Emancipation Day Act of 1834 abolished slavery in the British Empire. The act was in great part the result of several revolts by enslaved people, including the Haitian Revolution between 1791 to 1804, that culminated with the overthrow of French colonial rule in Haiti. The observation of Emancipation Day in British Columbia is welcomed because it acknowledges, among other things, Canada's 200 years history of slavery. However, let us be clear. The Emancipation Day Act of 1834 did not mark the end of anti-Black racism in the British empires. In Canada, anti-Black laws and practices continued, including school segregation, residential segregation, unions denying Black workers membership, and white-only immigration policies such as the Immigration Act of 1910. Today, racial disparities and anti-Black racial discrimination are observed across the board, from inferior access to healthcare to race-motivated hate crimes, racial profiling, unemployment rate, income gap, and more. And if that wasn't bad enough, if that wasn't horrible enough, anti-Black racism is happening on Indigenous land. Emancipation Day did not mark the end of anti-Black racism. And so I, like many Black people in Canada, like many Black people in BC, am left to wonder, what will be different this time? Will the observance of this day in BC come with meaningful, systemic, anti-racism, transformative changes? Or will this be a continuation of, at best, incrementalism, slowly doing inclusion work? Premier John Horgan, Parliamentary Secretary Singh, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, what will be your legacy on anti-racism? How transformative will this legacy be? In closing, I would like to elevate that Black emancipation and Black reparation are in many ways tied with Indigenous sovereignty and human rights, gender rights, LGBTQ rights, disability justice, climate justice, and class equity. May our collective struggle lead to fundamental shifts for human rights, social justice, and equity for all. Thank you very much. Over to you, Parliamentary Secretary Rachna Singh.
Thank you so much, Ismail. It was so good to hear what you talked about, and especially what we are going to do, the actions that we as government will be taking to combat racism, especially the anti-Black racism. And I really want to thank everybody present today and all the people who were watching us virtually. It is a historic day that we need to celebrate. But as I had said before, that the proclamations need to come with the concrete action plans, and our government is committed to do that. But thank you so much for joining us today. I really hope that you have a great day. Thank you.
As a reminder for media on the phone, please press *1 to ask a question. That's *1 if you'd like to queue up and ask a question. You will be allowed one question and one follow-up. Just checking, and it looks like we have no questions. They've all been answered today, so thank you everyone for joining us.